In this presentation, we will take a look at what it means to study a creative digital course through the Dagile London Project. Let's start with a question. What does creativity mean in an increasingly digital world? I'd like to answer that question with an analogy. What do you think of when I say bookshelf? There must be an image that's popped into your mind when I say bookshelf. It might be one you own, it might be one that you see regularly, it might even be one that's next to you right now. I want you to hold on to that image. Now, I think that most people have a similar image of what a bookshelf is, and I think it looks something like this. Straight shelves, potentially multiple shelves, in a case or perhaps on the wall, and with perhaps a number of items on the shelves. Let's take this image to be the metaphor for what you think digital skills are. So what is creativity in an increasingly digital world? What happens to your image of digital skills, represented by this bookshelf, if we add creativity? If we look at digital skills differently? How many of us would have thought of the image on the right-hand side when I said bookshelf? The bookshelf on the left is a very common style. The bookshelf on the right is different. It's very uncommon, but it's still a bookshelf. Now, the point is, in the digital world, there are often multiple ways to look at a problem and multiple ways to implement a solution. You need creativity to be able to explore your options, to be able to design new options. If we compare these bookshelves, I can see that on the right-hand side, not only is it a bookshelf, but it's almost ornamental. It has a style to it. It contributes to the decor of a room. I even noticed that on the top shelf I could put rather large books, perhaps a world atlas that goes beyond the edges of that shelf. Interestingly, it's not enclosed. I'd like you to hold on to this image on the right-hand side as a representation of what creativity means in an increasingly digital world, the change that it can lead to, something out of the ordinary, something that not used to. When we have new ideas, there's a sensation, a eureka moment. When we gain that new perspective, it helps us to solve problems and decision making in a very different way. Most of our approach to solving the problems of today is based on what we already know, not based on what we could know. So when we're tackling a problem, we don't say to ourselves, well, I would do it differently if I had also studied X, Y, and Z. We don't stop to think perhaps we could develop ourselves further before we tackle the problem. We often just try to understand solutions based on what we already know. However, most of us don't possess enough digital skills for the future. The direction in which computing technology is headed, we need to know a lot more. We currently rely on our internet service provider and our mobile data service provider, our network, our devices to keep us safe and secure. We don't have the knowledge to keep ourselves safe and secure. And that's just one example of how fundamental needs with digital technology, the fundamental digital skills that we need to use that technology, such as how to be safe, how to protect our data, we don't have all of that knowledge yet. We don't have a digital driver's license, something that says we're qualified to use the latest digital device with all its conveniences, but yet all its flaws. Now, typically, I find people avoid skilling up because it's overwhelming. There's a lot to it. And when a subject is so new to you and you can't even see the finish line, it's very hard to commit to doing it. Hopefully, in this presentation, I'll be able to help you select a potential starting point so that you can understand that everybody has a way in. Let's start with the courses that are available in the creative digital subject area. Let's look at the conventional terms used to describe the job roles and the skills amongst these courses. Here we have a selection of courses that you could potentially study. Website design, website development, user interface design, user experience design, image manipulation. These are the kind of terms that you may see on job descriptions, in job titles, and in lists of skills that you may need in the workplace. These courses do have a very clear endpoint, which is that you receive a certificate and a qualification from OCN London. This means that you actually have academic credits which you can build upon, and if you were to take more units, more courses, you could build up to an award. However, even our short courses are certified and act as a qualification in the subject that you are pursuing. The only thing you need to be mindful of is the level at which you'd like to study it. Level 1 is typically entry level. Level 2 is someone who has had a little bit of exposure to the subject before. Level 3 is typically somebody who has a level 2 understanding already. When it comes to web design and development, we have a level 1 course available which will help you become comfortable with creating and publishing web pages. The level 2 course will place more of an emphasis on the design and development of a website, being able to view it online and being comfortable in knowing how to take care of that website, how to maintain it. The level 1 user experience and user interface design course gives you an introduction to the theories and science behind how users respond to design. Making an app or a website is not just about building it, it's also about designing it for the user. Understanding that the audience for your digital product would actually be satisfied, even happy with what you've given them. Is it useful? Is it accessible? Is it suitable? The image manipulation course is about having a good command of your computer software so that you can edit images. You can capture photos, modify them, manipulate them, and the same goes for drawing something from scratch. You can produce brand logos, for example, all because you understand how the skills are applied within the software. Now, assessments are of course part of your course. That's how you get the qualification. But the great news is you have the full support of your university lecturer in order to pass your assessments. Feedback and support is available. Although you can study at your own pace, perhaps from work or from home, in your own time, you are certainly not alone in these courses. You have the support of a university lecturer. What's it like to do an assessment, to complete an assignment on one of these courses? On the assignments, you will see certain terms such as case study, project, role play, and they essentially refer to what you have to produce. A project, for example, has an emphasis on demonstrating some kind of business impact. Producing an essay or a report has an emphasis on what you have learned as a result of your studies. Now, they can be mixed and matched, and what you'll notice, depending on the course that you do, is that you are not doing all of these types of assessments, you're just doing a few types. But these are the kinds of assessments that may be involved in a Dagile London course. What do you think this image is? Is it a photo of a nighttime scene? Due to the lens flare, there's a blur. Or was this image actually made from scratch? Was it drawn on some image manipulation software? Either way, what's important here is that if you were to take the image manipulation course, you would be able to produce images such as this. It's a pretty useful background design. You can use it in many ways. When you have skills, you start to have more ideas. Why should you upskill right now? What is the reason that there is a course on the Dagile London Project that would be suitable for your career? Well, let's look at the world and the organizations that have had to adapt to an increasingly digital world. Ask yourself, what are the skills needed in the business today? The business you work at, or the business you're trying to create, or the business that you're thinking of. And how might those skills potentially become redundant over time, and the need for new skills might arise? Can the business adapt at the pace of the market if the people working within it do not keep up with the skills that are needed? The example of publishers. Many of them have started now to produce their books digitally. You can buy them as ebooks, you can buy them for the Kindle, you can even listen to them as audiobooks, because the market is changing. The needs of the business as a result are changing, because the business always has to operate within the market. It has to survive within the market. And as a result, the skills that the business needs to produce these audiobooks and the digital counterparts of their published books are also changing. What once was a publisher who would only print books, some bound with 1,000 pages, has now moved online. Their users have login details, and they have the opportunity to essentially have all of their files stored in one place with no limit. They can literally purchase as many books as they like. Where do future customers come from? What if the product that the business is selling right now needs to be operating or produced differently, because it's not so much that the competitiveness of the market is difficult, it's that the product is slowly getting phased out. The customers that normally purchase the product no longer do. Their interests have changed. With market forces such as this, and a change in consumer demand and consumer behavior, a business could hit a ceiling in their growth. They could potentially run out of new customers that they could acquire. Let's take the example of Lego computing. Lego had a very, very difficult time when it was only producing toys. Then they diversified. They have a theme park, and they even have Lego computing. Many ways for children to learn digital skills through play, through games, through toys. And no doubt the people behind all of this teaching have the skills required to produce these new products. Now, Lego may have gone out and hired a lot of new people, but just as easily, perhaps even more easily, existing staff could have potentially upskilled and moved into new positions to adapt to the needs of the business. I hope that by this point, my metaphor for applying creativity to your approach to digital skills is seeming a little more relevant to you. I hope that you are asking yourself the questions that will help you adapt to an increasingly digital world. I hope that some of the courses that I've mentioned might be of great use to either yourself or somebody you know, or even your organization, because they are free for a limited time and certified by OCN London. I hope that the examples I've given have also got you thinking about how the need for digital skills is emerging actually much faster than people's natural and innate desire to actually upskill. We really need to try and keep up right now. I would like to close with this point. New ideas can come from new skills, because the skills are an enabler. What I mean by that is, when you have a new skill, your world expands, because you now have access to more opportunities. Therefore, your world is full of a lot more possibilities. And the more possible things are in your world, in your reality, the more ideas that you can have. New ideas, different ideas, all powered by your belief in what's possible. Let's take the example of web development. If you have learned how to code during your time on the course of building websites, you actually have a transferable skill. You can now code. And coding is a skill, which means you could even make games with that same skill. By learning to code, even though you learned it in the context of making websites, you're not that far away from now honing those skills for something like making a simple game. And so if I hadn't given you this heads up, and you had taken the web development course, and then at the end I told you, guess what? You can now make a game. You'd probably be very surprised at that point, because you wouldn't know exactly how to go about making a game. But it's really up to you to ask those questions, because only you can decide how far you want to develop your digital skills. In the beginning, seeing code can cause a bit of alarm. It can seem overwhelming. But the thing is, after you take the course, you will be so comfortable with reading code that looks like this, it wouldn't be a worry. It's simply a language that you would now know. I want to cover an example here, a technical example. See, when we load a website or an app, the developers always have the choice of whether the videos on that page play automatically or whether they have to be played by the user. Should the user press play, or should the video just start playing as soon as the page loads? That feature is known as autoplay. Now, from a technical standpoint, you can just turn that feature on and off. You just need to know what code to write. It's relatively straightforward. But from an experience standpoint, I'm sure we've all experienced a time where all of a sudden there's noise coming out of our browser and we don't know which tab it's on, because on some news website the video ad just starts playing. And some of them are particularly tricky because they don't play immediately. They start playing about 5 seconds after you've loaded the page. And so it's completely caught you off guard. All of a sudden there's a lot of noise coming out of your machine. That feature is autoplay. It's automatically playing the video. So from a user experience perspective, some people may find, well, if I've visited the page to see the video, I don't have a problem with it autoplaying. Others might say, well, no, I might have loaded the page, but I don't really want the video to play until I'm ready to pay attention to it. I'd rather look at the rest of the page first. And so this is a user experience question. Now, when you have the skill to control the autoplay feature with the code, you also now have control over a user experience, what it's like for a person to load a page with a video on it. So the creative digital courses, they're not so distinct and separate that they're completely unrelated, because they're all about digital products and how to serve the needs of an audience. The courses make a lot of reference to producing work that is fit for purpose, making a difference in the workplace, managing your relationship with the stakeholders on the project. The courses in Dagile London are about work-ready skills, skills that you can apply. So there really is no reason for you to delay selecting a course that's right for you. The thing is, when you have enough guidance, you can understand what a transferable skill is. A skill that you have in one area of work, in one context, that you can apply elsewhere. That's the amazing part of doing a Dagile London course, is that you have contact with the lecturer who can give you that guidance to make sure that you're getting the most out of your experience. You're not just getting the qualification, you are changing the way that you approach work so that all of the skills that you're building are applicable in multiple contexts, in many types of work, in many types of projects and roles, so that you have a serious chance at career progression. Whether you want to go for a promotion, or whether you want to take on more projects, or whether you want to build a business, knowing that the skills that you've gained are useful and how that they can be applied is essential. Creating a brief, that's a skill in the design world, and now even in the tech world. Understanding how to specify what the project needs. This is what I think we should be doing, is the plain English way of saying what the purpose of a brief is. Pitching the proposal starts with actually having told yourself what you want to make, essentially having a draft brief, but then crafting a narrative, a story around why the rest of the team should join you. This is what I think we should all be doing. Now, there are more skills here than the digital skills to type up a brief or to produce a proposal, because even a proposal may have designs and mock-ups and graphics to inspire your stakeholders to join you in your mission. But there are more skills than that. There are the skills of communication, the skills of team collaboration. For your digital skills to really apply at work, you need to understand what kind of behaviors you need to pick up to be an excellent professional. And you can challenge yourself to discuss these things with your lecturer, because Dagile London courses have a lecturer. They are not just distance learning courses that you do by yourself. They are university-led. I hope that through this presentation I have managed to remove some of the limits that you may have previously placed on yourself in regards to your growth with digital skills. You really should aim as high as you want to aim in terms of how useful you can make digital skills in your work and your career. For some of us, we pick up new skills not just for our careers, but even for the newer generations. Some of us teach, some of us volunteer. Career progression is not just about excelling in the job you have today, it's about knowing where you want to take your career. I hope that you can start to dream a lot bigger in terms of what you may be capable of learning with the right support around you. With the Dagile London courses, you have every mode of support. Because the courses are at your own pace, there is no concern about falling behind. It's just about staying motivated, getting through the course, doing the assignments, staying in contact with your lecturer, and coming out the other side, all the while managing the current responsibilities that you have, your family, your work. It's all manageable because the Dagile London courses are at your own pace. Thank you for reaching the end of this presentation. You can visit dagileLondon.com to see all of the courses that we have available. This particular presentation was about the courses in the Creative Digital subject area, but we also have the subject areas of Management and Leadership, Digital and IT, Basic Skills including Maths and English. Please do visit the Dagile London website and take a look at the next course that you should be doing to progress in your career, and certainly share it with your friends, your family and your colleagues and your company to make sure everybody else has the opportunity to take these courses whilst they are free and funded by the European Social Fund.